At least twice a year, there is a breaking story in either America or the UK about a woman giving birth and immediately murdering their newborn, much to the shock of their family, friends, and community. These stories eclipse local news and become somewhat viral due to the nature of the crime. People are collectively enraged and disgusted by the act of killing a child. It is not only morally abhorrent to a society, but incomprehensible. Discussion is sparked and vitriol is hurled at the suspects, both online and on the television. Then, the case is closed. I think most people, myself included, wonder why this keeps happening. One might say, asking why people kill is like asking if the sun will rise each day or if the sky is blue. This strand of murder is in its own category though. Imagine carrying a child to full term, bringing it into the world and immediately choosing to end its life. Why do the whole bit? No, really. What clicked in the minds of these individuals? Was it merely a spur-of-the-moment killing, or premeditated before or after the time of conception? Either way, this would expose an ugly reality that society isn't ready to face. Because this reality then leads to dark truths about human nature. Infanticide happens all over the world, and is something known to have been occurring for hundreds, if not thousands of years. The act itself has been commonly committed throughout many cultures and faiths. Neonaticide, which is the act of killing a newborn within the first 24 hours of its life, was practiced widely well into the 1800s. Many of these killings were done at the hands of young, unmarried women who feared the shame of giving birth to a bastard child. This was something that could ruin a woman's reputation, or worse yet, lead to being shunned and disowned by those closest to her. In 2001, Professor of Psychology Cheryl L. Myers and Professor of Law Michelle Oberman published a book titled Mothers Who Kill Their Children. On page 41, they stated the following: Neonaticide is a remarkably widespread phenomenon. One study estimates that 45% of children murdered before age 1 die within 24 hours of the onset of their lives, thus making them victims of neonaticide. This is a crazy stat, because it's almost half of children killed before their first birthday. In the UK, the Infanticide Act of 1938 legally differentiated the crime from murder, highlighting that the postpartum period can cause mental distress and turmoil that can lead to a woman not acting in her right mind. Many places in the world still practice infanticide, whether it be due to characteristics of the child, scarcity, or superstition. I want to focus on infanticide particularly in Western countries that provide government assistance in the form of subsidized housing, medical interventions, and so on. Clearly, there are some differing factors in the West that leave many grey areas to be considered. The first year of a child's life is when they are most likely to be murdered. When an infant is killed, the perpetrator is almost always one of the parents. Infanticide is not explicitly tracked or recorded like other murders, which I think is strange, but there is some research and literature that provide more insight. In the late 60s, Dr. Philip Resnick, a professor of psychiatry, published his groundbreaking study about neonaticide, looking into motive, mental health status, external factors, and so on. There have been criticisms since then about the research being outdated. Nevertheless, Resnick was at the forefront of this area of study at the time. I do believe some observations he made can still be applied to many infanticide and neonaticide cases in the current day. Plus, his categorization process has been supported in studies around the world. These categories are based on motive and other relating factors and have been revised and updated by other psychiatrists since. We will just look at the most common categories. The concealer is usually a young girl or woman with an unwanted pregnancy. The father is either unaware or uninvolved. She then hides the pregnancy from the people around her, carrying the child to full term due to the denial of the entire thing happening. Many of the women in this category go about their normal day-to-day life, ignoring their pregnancy, especially at the early stages, before any noticeable changes in appearance. Concealers give birth alone in secret. Shortly after the labor, the concealer either abandons the child, leaving them to the elements, or takes the child's life herself. Psychologist Cheryl Myers refers to concealers as, quote, usually girls who are 17 get pregnant, become scared to death, and don't want to tell their parents. They're not 30-year-old women who can have an abortion.
I got detectives on the way, so they're gonna be talking to her.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
You guys have, I'm the charge nurse. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Like, how big is the baby?
It's full term.
What? 9 months? Nothing was crying. Lexi, have you watched the news of the girls that what they do to their babies and what they go to jail? Nothing was crying.
Cause of death, entrapment. I've never seen that before. Been doing this for many years, but I've never seen that before. Manner of death, homicide. What do those words mean to you, Dr. Dupree?
Well, the entrapment is, as you would expect, it means that the baby was in a position that they were trapped and couldn't get out. So in the trash can, and most likely suffocated because they were entrapped. And of course, the baby didn't get in there by themselves, so that would be a homicide.
Now, let's take a look at some more findings from this autopsy, which will be very, very significant. Live born male newborn, aerated lungs, air in stomach, no decomposition. Tell us a little bit about that, what that means, because I think part of the defense here will be that this child was not born alive, that this was a stillbirth, or perhaps died very quickly after taking 1 or 2 breaths.
Any other questions?
Right. So as of right now, like what I said is, we're gonna have the detectives come over here and they're gonna talk to you. Okay. We have to gather some more information about what's going on. They'll get your statement. They're going to get the doctor's statements. They're going to get everybody's statements, okay? So, I don't know everything yet, okay? So I'm not going to tell you, I can't tell you nothing, honestly, okay? All I can say
she's
is,
not going to go to jail.
right now,
No.
right now, she's being detained. So she's not going to leave from here at all, period, okay? So one of us will
She's
be
in your custody? Like,
yeah, she's detained. Yeah, she's not under arrest, but she is detained, okay? She's not free to leave.
On page 21 of Mothers Who Kill Their Children, the motives of a concealer are hypothesized. In Resnick's third category, that of unwanted child, the parent murdered the child because she did not want the child. For mothers, Resnick indicated the child may have represented an impediment to a new relationship or been the product of illegitimacy. It seems that no matter how far into the future we venture, there is an overarching fear surrounding illegitimate pregnancy. We are probably evolutionarily hardwired to fear it, first and foremost, from a survival aspect, and that would make sense the further back into history you go. Then there is the shame, which most likely stems from the feeling of disappointing parents, causing embarrassment, and being looked down upon. Status still remains an extremely important part of societal participation, and being a young mum, it definitely grays you out from many of the experiences your childless peers are able to engage in, and just enjoy for the sake of it because that's part of growing up and being young. Many of the concealers shown in media are under 25. The brain is not fully developed until this age. Specifically, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making and social behavior. This is not to excuse anyone, but instead to give further understanding as to why these individuals felt such a terrible decision was the only choice they had. I can understand the fear of family and friends turning their backs on you, which is another reason cited in the study of infanticide, but this can't be an excuse. The fear of being told to leave the family home is an immense thing to grapple with, especially when you are still a young woman that partially relies on your immediate family for support. There's also several shelters for women and their children across the West. There's an abundance of charities and agencies specifically funded to support these groups of people. Government assistance is not glamorous, but it is still an option in a world where many nations fail to provide a safety net for vulnerable citizens. Giving up a child to a loving family is also not a wild suggestion. Fertility rates in the West are absolutely tanking, and there are thousands of couples desperate for a child of their own to raise. There are even baby boxes at some fire stations that remain discreet. Yes, actual boxes to put a baby in and then leave. What are the missing gaps that compel some mothers to do the unthinkable? Brooke Schuyler Richardson was a varsity cheerleader with a seemingly stable home life and supportive parents. People accused Brooke of burying her child in the family's backyard in order to preserve her good girl image, which the family has since denied. Hours before she went into labor, her internet history revealed Google searches such as how not to have a baby and how to get rid of a baby.
You're still our daughter. Just please be patient with us because this is a shock, okay?
I know.
You're absolutely certain, beyond a doubt, because we didn't hear anything. That was a Sunday night, and you did this all on your own. Jackson didn't get up. Nobody got up. Nobody helped you.
No. Please.
No, I can't feel my body right now.
Sorry. I didn't.
Honey, please stop. That doesn't help. You did a horrible thing.
I didn't kill her.
You got pregnant. You had a baby in our house, and you never told us.
I couldn't.
Yes, you should have. Do you understand how much worse this is than that would have been? That's what we're trying to grasp. Because we were thinking that we were trying to do the things that were right for you, and they went horribly wrong. But if you went to the doctor, and they prescribed you with the pill, and then they called because the baby was no longer there, it doesn't make any sense.
I don't.
If they gave you pills and you took it, then that would have killed it, then that's manslaughter.
But I didn't do it on purpose. I thought they gave me the pills.
Okay. You're absolutely 100% certain that you went to the doctor and they prescribed the pill to you in April and you started taking them.
Yeah.
So less than 2 weeks later, you delivered a stillborn baby.
When you walked out of that doctor's office, did you know you were pregnant?
No. I hadn't taken any tests. I mean, I thought I might be, but...
Who confirmed it for you?
Dr. Andrews.
He told you later?
He told me that day.
Wait, he told you that day, the 26th?
You just told me you walked out of the doctor's office and didn't know you.
No, I thought you meant when I walked in. Like, I didn't think I was, but when he told me, yes, I left, I knew. I didn't.
And you didn't tell us then?
No.
So if you took the pill after that, then it was manslaughter.
No, because they gave it to me. I didn't know.
Did they tell you not to take the pill if you were pregnant?
No. They didn't tell me that. They just picked up my prescription when I was supposed to.
And you're absolutely certain about this point? Because the doctor's telling a different story.
What did the doctor say?
Well, they said that you were pregnant when you were there, and you came back and you're not, and you told them you buried it.
Because I had the baby and it wasn't alive.
I was honestly shocked that she was not convicted with serious charges and is able to live a normal life today. However, the baby was buried for a full 2 months before Brooke admitted to what she did at a routine gynecology appointment. The guilt of what she had done may have been so all-consuming that she had to confess in the end. Brooke, however, does not fit some of the typical profiling of a concealer, such as low socioeconomic status, broken family, or a tough environment, but she at some point decided that her baby would impede on her life in some way and she had to get rid of it. When exploring motive, there is the important factor of mental health. How is one to judge that the perpetrator was or wasn't of sound mind when the crime was committed? It's not uncommon for people to plead insanity upon committing a horrible crime. The defense remains controversial because it can be exploited. It still remains fairly difficult to get a successful insanity defense, adding on the fact that every case has unique circumstances and must be judged as such. In the UK, in order for such a plea to be valid, intent or recklessness may be present, and whilst there may be evidence of intoxication or mental ill health, that must act so as to negate the intent or recklessness to amount to a defense. Similarly, the suspect's mental ill health must be shown to have been such that they did not know a fact or foresee a consequence or other mental element required for guilt. Mental ill health, where such elements remain, will not provide for acquittal on the basis of an absence of mens rea or a guilty mind. With that being said, I believe many neonaticide and infanticide cases do not possess enough of an absence of a guilty mind that could negate intent. Prominent cases have shown that the mother had an understanding of what she was doing. Whether properly thought out or not, these were steps taken by selfish individuals which ultimately failed the vulnerable souls they were responsible for. There is a lot of sympathy towards mothers in these circumstances, but I think it's given out too quickly and the heinous act becomes secondary to the mental state of the mother. I don't agree with this take because of the steady progression many infanticide cases display. There are so many points at which the mother could ask for help, either from her network, seek professional help, or give the kid to the state, which is totally free and not the best option, but better than murder. The system is not perfect, and there are definitely things that should be reviewed. Considering other reasons outlined to cause infanticide, such as resources and survival, you'd be hard-pressed to find a case of infanticide in the West where a mother or her child's life were truly threatened to the point she was forced to kill the child or herself. Though UK law makes some exceptions, the child's vulnerability and lack of autonomy cannot be overlooked. There is a common pattern of mothers seeing their children as an extension of themselves and not a person in their own right. This is dangerous when the mother plays God by deciding who lives and who dies. This may be why so many of these women carry out the act instantaneously, almost without any thought, because they view the child as their property. This could also be a way to rationalize what has happened. In the mind of the perpetrator, the child is too young to know or be known by others, so ending their life would cause nothing to change. Then there are individuals who've almost certainly lost their grip on reality. This brings us to the next categorization. Resnick defined acutely psychotic as parents who killed under the influence of hallucinations, epilepsy, or delusions. The category of altruistic filicide was divided into that associated with suicide and that intended to relieve suffering. In the former subcategory, suicidal parents indicated they could not abandon their child when they killed themselves. In the second subcategory, the filicide represented euthanasia, aimed at eliminating the child's real or imagined suffering. Sometimes there are cases where both judge and jury agree that the perpetrator is insane. These can be the most horrific. As reported in the San Diego Union Tribune, Dina Schlosser killed her 11-month-old daughter in 2004, cutting off her arms with a knife while listening to gospel music in her home in Plano, Texas. She had a history of bipolar disorder, depression, and postpartum psychosis, and police found her covered with blood, holding the knife, singing hymns, and chanting, "Thank you, Lord." Her 2 other daughters were not harmed. She was found not guilty by reason of insanity and committed to a state mental hospital. When a mother is having a mental break, this most likely poses a great risk to the life of her child. There are instances where a person is not in control of their basic mental faculties. Legally, there is a diminished responsibility when insanity can be clearly proven. This isn't straightforward when it comes to sentencing a mother charged with this crime. There are also factors to consider, such as if a mother kills her baby in the UK, there will be a view that her mind is disturbed if she is going through postpartum, which is any time within the first year of giving birth. The US system is not as lenient in the sense that it is still classed as a homicide, and a mother can be sentenced anywhere from 15 years to life in prison. When authorities are investigating a possible motive, there will be questions about a mother's mental state, especially if she is postpartum, as it is known to be a challenging period. Postpartum depression is unfortunately known to be quite common. In the US, approximately 1 in 10 women experience this, and in the UK it is about the same. But how common is postpartum psychosis? Postpartum psychosis is a mental illness that has been linked to possible risk of infanticide by psychiatrists. According to postpartum.net, postpartum psychosis occurs in approximately 1 to 2 out of every 1,000 deliveries, or approximately 1 to 2% of births. The onset is usually sudden, most often within the first 2 weeks postpartum, but can appear any time in the first year. Symptoms of postpartum psychosis can include delusions or strange beliefs, hallucinations, feeling very irritated, hyperactivity, severe depression or flat affect, decreased need for or inability to sleep, paranoia or suspiciousness, rapid mood swings, difficulty communicating at times. It's also good to consider that the most significant risk factors for postpartum psychosis are a personal or family history of bipolar disorder or a previous psychotic episode. Research also suggests that there is approximately a 5% suicide rate and a 4% infanticide rate associated with postpartum psychosis. And that's because when a woman is experiencing psychosis, they are obviously having a break from reality, which is quite similar and links into this category of acutely psychotic. However, according to the research, if mothers with postpartum psychosis are highly unlikely to be violent towards themselves, their child, or others, then it may be a gross miscalculation to link infanticide with this diagnosis. Dr. Susan Hatters-Friedman, dubbed the Philip Resnick Professor at Forensic Psychiatry at Case Western Reserve University, like Cheryl Susan, has heavily studied cases of parents who kill their children. When discussing the acutely psychotic categorization, She told the Boston Globe, "In some cases, the parent's motive is altruistic, murder out of love. However strange that may sound, a parent may have delusions that the child faces a fate worse than death, such as being kidnapped and murdered, and believes killing them gently is preferable. Parents who are planning suicide may not want to leave their child in a world they perceive as too horrible to live in. In the acutely psychotic cases, a parent may think God is commanding them to kill their child or that their child is evil. There are cases where mothers kill their babies during a mental break. However, I don't think this is the blanket conclusion in most infanticide cases. I think the insanity plea is definitely abused in court in the hopes of getting a lesser sentence for the killer. I don't think we would go back and forth as much about mental state and hypotheticals if the murder victim was an adult, but for some reason, when it is the mother's infant child, now we have to consider what the mother must have been going through. Again, I just want to emphasize that in most other murder cases, we barely consider what the killer was going through, nor are they victimized in any way. Everyone is also going through things every single day, so I do think it is quite interesting when you look at murders, but then you look at infanticide. The defense are very ready to use postpartum depression or postpartum psychosis as a reason, almost to excuse the murder, but I don't want to say excuse, but basically excuse. People find it hard to believe that a mother can kill their baby in cold blood. There must be something wrong with her, they think. Maybe an imbalance. There has to be a reason. Sometimes that is all there is to the story. The mother didn't want the child in the picture, so they removed them in one way or another. It's difficult for Western societies to accept that it is sometimes this simple, because the act is somewhat a reflection of society. People cannot bear to think that amidst such innovation and modernity, such savage practices still remain. Does this mean that society is broken? I don't think so. However, children remain the most vulnerable class in society, and the entire world continues to fail them. That much is certain. Myers and Oberman both noted that the abuse-related filicide category includes mothers who killed their child during a physical assault, although these women had previously assaulted their child or children. The purpose of the assault was not to kill the child. Often, the alleged purpose of the abuse was discipline, which doesn't actually make any sense because how do you discipline an infant? In the filicide due to neglect, Oberman and Myers stated these mothers did not purposely kill their child, but either failed to attend to the child's basic needs or were irresponsible in their reaction to the child's behavior. Therefore, these cases subdivide into neglect omission and neglect commission, respectively.
57-year-old Angela Blackwell from South Carolina was arrested after cops say the newborn died after being in the fridge for more than 3 hours. The boy's grandfather trembles as he speaks out in the mother's defense.
We just noticed she didn't do it because she loves her kids too much.
Blackwell's 3-year-old son was taken by Child Services following his brother's death. If convicted, she faces 20 years to life in prison.
Mothers who have killed their children due to neglect or abuse may not mean to kill their child, just like some women in the previous categories covered did not intentionally kill or premeditate. These acts can also be a reaction to the situations unfolding in a new mother's life that may overwhelm her so much and cause the child to unfortunately become a target to release their frustrations. Society wrongly assumes all women have an innate, nurturing instinct, but this couldn't be farther from the truth. I know countless women that don't have a single maternal bone in their body, nor will they ever magically develop these feelings. I think this is a stereotype that does more harm than people realize, and in normalizing and accepting these types of women, just as we do men that have no interest in children, it could possibly decrease the stigmatization associated with mothers that don't want their children. This could mitigate some of the various risks associated with infanticide, because mothers that don't like being mothers would not feel like they are stuck with a child.
And never being there for his kids.
Mother,
He was
stop.
always on sex stuff,
Mother,
right?
mother, listen to me.
I had to beg you to come sit down, nigga, for real.
Mother, listen to
No
me.
matter how much you lie or how your lawyers lie,
Mother.
you know the fucking truth, and it will be proved. Matthew and Gabby will clearly say.
Are you done, Mother? Listen to me. This is a civil case. It's not a criminal case. We can and we will do it without you.
I never
We
tried
will
to say I
do it
didn't. I
without
did it,
you.
but that does not negate the fact that they were never there for their children. I had to struggle with them all the time. They were never there.
You get
Steven,
your
you
chance.
know we had to beg you. Me, Steven, all of us used to cry for you, nigga.
You're not going to be able to
I'm
stay,
good.
Mother.
Come
There
here.
are rules.
Sick of this shit.
Tell the jury how you killed this baby.
It was an accident.
Not your excuse. How did you murder this baby? How did you cause these injuries?
I have sit here and admitted.
Answer the question, please. How did you cause these injuries?
It was an accident.
Not your excuse for what happened. How did you cause these injuries? How did you cause those rib fractures?
By dropping him.
By dropping him. How did you cause that first 2-inch skull fracture?
I don't remember.
How did you cause that 1-inch skull fracture?
It had to be from dropping him.
How did you cause that complete upper arm fracture?
Nothing that I ever did was intentional.
I'm not asking for your excuse. How did you cause that complete upper arm fracture? Tell the jury.
I have to live with this for the rest of my
Answer the question.
life.
How did you cause that complete?
You have devoured my family.
Ms. Groves, you answer the questions that are asked of you. You understand?
I've admitted to my guilt.
How did you?
And I have to live without my children. I'm
I'm
done talking to you.
You are talking to me because you're sitting on the witness stand. Tell them how you caused that injury. Judge, I ask you to instruct the witness to answer the question.
Ms. Groves, by testifying, you're subject to cross-examination. You have to answer the questions on cross-examination that are relevant to these proceedings. This question is a relevant question. You will answer the question at this time. And what is your answer to the last question? Ms. Hutchinson, step back for a minute.
I thought we were I'm sorry, Your Honor.
What is your answer to the last question?
Often there are mothers who do not feel any connection to their child or experience very negative feelings after becoming a mum. This isn't a new phenomenon, but due to our societal norms, these types of women do not feel comfortable expressing what they are experiencing for fear of being judged or perceived as some mad woman. A mother suffering in silence is often most dangerous for the child. For many of the mothers in the Neglect Commission subcategory, there was little time to gain perspective on their particular parenting situations. For instance, if a mother who responded to an incessantly crying child by impulsively shaking the baby to death had had more personal time, one might speculate that she may have had more psychological resources available to her and may have had better judgment in the situation. Zeroing in on Western society specifically, the system is broken in many ways if infanticide remains prevalent, and it's as simple as that. A fair amount of these harrowing stories exist because these mothers are falling through the cracks. These mothers have felt unable to access the many resources available that we discussed earlier. I've come down hard on some of these women, and I definitely stand by it. Every case is different, and some people are just evil. There is a desperate need for more transparency and openness when discussing infanticide in order to prevent repetitions. Maybe include it in the school curriculum in an age-appropriate way to introduce the concept to adolescents, to raise awareness and knowledge. As part of study material, students can have the opportunity to analyze previous cases, debate in class, and actually have a deeper understanding of some reasons mothers commit infanticide. Sex education is obviously important, but weirdly enough, there is no proper education on motherhood and what it actually entails. This should be a huge priority in schools, but most importantly, these conversations need to start at home, with the family, as the majority of the women committing these murders are quite young.
Like I said, this is a lot. I know it is, okay? You're young, you know, I don't want to be in here kind of adding to your anxiety and everything else, okay? If you need something, just push that button, okay? And then they'll come in here. They're on the way, okay? Okay? So as soon as they get here, they're going to talk to you. I mean, the reason why...
Will my mom be allowed in here?
Your mom, well, not yet. I can't allow her to come back in here yet.
No, but when they get here.
Yeah, once they get here, then it's up to detectives, and then you could ask them if she can come back here. If they're okay with her coming back here, then she can come back here, okay? The reason why is because you're an adult. You're 19 years old, okay? If you were a juvenile, I would gladly have her back in here, okay? But being you're an adult, I can't have her, okay?
Yes, sir.
Mental health is mainly a cope defense for infanticide because unless the mother is seriously mentally unwell, the crime should be punished the same way as any murder, and it is a huge disservice to infants where in places like the UK, mothers can avoid charges or get very short sentences for such a crime. This topic is complex and there isn't one simple solution that gets to the root of these cases as it's so layered. I do hope that more people are aware of how common infanticide is and that all mothers can be capable of this crime. The perfect mother simply doesn't exist, nor should there be such a standard for one parent because of their sex. Thank you for watching the video till the end. I really appreciate it. As you can tell by some of the audio issues, it's my first video. Check out my podcast with over 100 episodes called The Curious Podcast, available on all major platforms, and my website with articles and videos. Links are all in the description below.